Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios at Radha Lane in Houston, Texas, along with the Rasika devotees, the devotees who are attached to hearing. This is the process Prabhupada gave us. It's a very simple process. Lord Chaitanya said, even you can stay where you are, but you have to hear in the company of other pure devotees. Sanatana Goswami is giving us something to hear and think about before we hear the Bhagavatam, so we read this every single day. I got this fantastic letter from Vilas Manjari. I mean, I sent it out in the folder of offerings, even though she didn't intend it as an offering. And she sent me a letter saying, I'm surely glad you did that because I didn't know about writing the offering, and she was very happy. Anyway, her life has become blissful and in practical ways auspicious from hearing every day. Okay. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, enunciated by Srila Sanatana Goswami, senior disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wrote this not long after he got 20 straight days of teachings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, direct. Okay, Haribol Sarva, Hare Krishna. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprida. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwan Duditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshaksharayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostube. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can be always served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madgudo Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya, Mad Anandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin, atini chochita kada, hanamun shagadachin mam, premnarit kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Vasudev is giving Kamsa a Srimad Bhagavatam class right in the middle of the, just before Kamsa, tries to kill Devaki. He's giving him a class on spiritual principles. When the luminary is in the sky, this is the text 43 chapter 1, beginning with text 43. Sorry. When the luminaries in the sky, such as the moon, the sun, and the stars, are reflected in liquids like oil or water, they appear to be of different shapes, sometimes round, sometimes long, and so on, because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, when the living entity, the soul, is absorbed in materialistic thoughts, he accepts various manifestations of his own identity because of ignorance. In other words, one is bewildered by mental concoctions because of agitation from the material modes of nature. Purport. This verse gives a very good example by which to understand the different positions of the eternal spiritual soul in the material world, and how the soul takes on different bodies, dehantara prapti. The moon is stationary and is one, but when it is reflected in water or oil, it appears to take different shapes because of the movements of the wind. Similarly, the soul is an eternal servant of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but when put into the material modes of nature, it takes different bodies, sometimes as a demigod, sometimes a man, a dog, a tree, and so on. By the influence of Maya, the illusory potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity thinks that he is this person, that person, American, Indian, cat, dog, tree, or whatever. This is called Maya. When one is freed from this bewilderment and understands that the soul does not belong to any shape of this material world, one is situated on the spiritual platform, Brahmabhuta. This realization is sometimes explained as nirakara, or formlessness. This formlessness, however, does not mean that the soul has no form. The soul has form, but the external, agitating form he has acquired because of material contamination is false. Similarly, God is also described as nirakara, which means that God has no material form, but is Satchidananda Vigraha. The living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Satchidananda Vigraha. But his material forms are temporary or illusory. Both the living entity and the Supreme Lord have original spiritual forms, Satchidananda Vigraha, but the Lord, the Supreme, does not change his form. The Lord appears as he is, whereas the living entity appears because material nature forces him to accept different forms. When the living entity receives these different forms, he identifies with them, and not with his original spiritual form. As soon as the living entity returns to his original spiritual form and understanding, he immediately surrenders to the Supreme Form, the Personality of Godhead. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Bahunam janmanam ante Gyanavan mam prapadyate. When the living entity, after many, many births in different forms, returns to his original form of Krishna consciousness, he immediately surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Form, Krishna. This is liberation. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 18:54, Brahmabhuta prasanatma nashochati nakangshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Surrender unto the Supreme Form is the result of bhakti. This bhakti, or understanding of one's own position, is the complete liberation. As long as one is under the an impersonal understanding of the absolute truth, he is not in pure knowledge, but must still struggle for pure knowledge. Kleshodikatadaste sham abhyakta sakta chetasam. Bhagavad Gita 12.5. Although one may be spiritually advanced, if one is attached to the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, one must still work very hard, as indicated by the words klesho dikadata, which means greater suffering. A devotee, however, easily attains his original position as a spiritual form and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form. Krishna himself explains the forms of the living entities in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he clearly says to Arjuna that he, Arjuna, and all other living entities who were previously in their original forms are separate individual identities. They were individuals in the past, they are now situated in individuality, and in the future they will all continue to maintain their individual forms. The only difference is that the conditioned living entity appears in various material forms, whereas Krishna appears in his original spiritual form. Unfortunately, those who are not advanced in spiritual knowledge think that Krishna is like one of them, and that his form is like their material forms. Avajanant imam mudha manushim tanamashritam. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Krishna is never puffed up by material knowledge, and is therefore called achyuta, whereas the living entities fall down and are agitated by material nature. This is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entities. In this connection, it is to be noted that Vasudeva, who was situated in the transcendental position, advised Kamsa not to commit further sinful activities. Kamsa, a representative of the demons, was always ready to kill Krishna, or God, whereas Vasudeva represents a transcendentally situated person to whom Krishna is born. Vasudeva is the son of Vasudeva. Vasudeva wanted his brother-in-law Kamsa to refrain from the sinful act of killing his sister, since the result of being agitated by material nature would be that Kamsa would have to accept a body in which to suffer again and again. Elsewhere in Srimad-Bhagavatam 5.5.4, Rishabdev also says, Nasadu manye yata atmano yam asan apiklesha da asade haha. As long as the living entity is entangled in the fruitive activities of so-called happiness and distress, he will receive a particular type of body in which to endure the 3 kinds of suffering due to material nature, tritapa yantrana. An intelligent person, therefore, must free himself from the influence of the 3 modes of material nature and revive his original spiritual body by engaging in the service of the Supreme Person, Krishna. As long as one is materially attached, one must accept the process of birth, death, old age, and disease. One is therefore advised that an intelligent person, instead of being entangled in so-called good and bad fruitive activities, should engage his life in advancing in Krishna consciousness, so that instead of accepting another material body, jaktva deham punar janma naiti, he will return home, back to Godhead. Text 44. Therefore, since envious, impious activities cause a body in which one suffers in the next life, why should one act impiously? Considering one's welfare, one should not envy anyone. For an envious person must always fear harm from his enemies, either in this life or in the next. Purport. Instead of being inimical toward other living entities, one should act piously by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord, thus avoiding a fearful situation both in this life and in the next. In this regard, the following moral instruction by the great politician Chanakya Pandit is very meaningful. Tyajya durjana sangsargam bhajasadu samagamam kuru punyam ahoratram smarta nityam anityatam. One should give up the company of devils, demons, and non-devotees, and should always associate with devotees and saintly persons. One should always act piously, thinking that this life is temporary, and not be attached to temporary happiness and distress. The Krishna consciousness movement is teaching all of human society this principle of becoming Krishna conscious, and thus solving the problems of life forever. Jaktva deham punar janma naitimam iti sorjana. Text 45. As your younger sister, this poor girl Devaki is like your own daughter and deserves to be affectionately maintained. You are merciful, and therefore you should not kill her. Indeed, she deserves your affection. Text 46. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O best of the Kuru dynasty, Kamsa was fiercely cruel and was actually a follower of the Rakshasas. Therefore he could be neither pacified nor terrified by the good instructions given by Vasudeva. He did not care about the results of sinful activities, either in this life or in the next. Text 47. When Vasudeva saw that Kamsa was determined to kill his sister Devaki, he thought to himself very deeply. Considering the imminent danger of death, he thought of another plan to stop Kamsa. Purport. Although Vasudeva saw the imminent danger that his wife Devaki would be killed, he was convinced of his welfare, because at his birth the demigods had played drums and kettle drums. He therefore attempted another way to save Devaki. He had the demigods in his corner, Krishna in his corner. Text 48. As long as he has intelligence and bodily strength, an intelligent person must try to avoid death. This is the duty of every embodied person. But if death cannot be avoided in spite of one's endeavors, a person facing death commits no offense. Purport. It is natural for a person facing untimely death to try his best to save himself. This is one's duty. Although death is sure, everyone should try to avoid it and not meet death without opposition, because every living soul is by nature eternal. Because death is a punishment imposed in the condemned life of material existence. The Vedic culture is based on avoiding death, jaktva deham punar janma naiti. Everyone should try to avoid death and rebirth by cultivating spiritual life, and should not submit to death without struggling to survive. One who is not trying to stop death is not an intelligent human being. Because Devaki was face to face with imminent death, it was Vasudeva's duty to save her, as he was trying his best to do. He therefore considered another way to approach Kamsa so that Devaki would be saved. 49 and 50. Vasudeva considered, by delivering all my sons to Kamsa, who is death personified, I shall save the life of Devaki. Perhaps Kamsa will die before my sons take birth. Or since he is already destined to die at the hands of my son, one of my sons may kill him. For the time being, let me promise to hand over my sons so that Kamsa will give up this immediate threat. And if in due course of time Kamsa dies, I shall have nothing to fear. Purport. Vasudeva wanted to save the life of Devaki by promising to deliver his sons to Kamsa. In the future, he thought, Kamsa may die, or I may not beget any sons. Even if a son is born, and I deliver him to Kamsa, Kamsa may die at his hands, for by providence, anything could happen. It is very difficult to understand how things are managed by providence. Thus, Vasudeva decided that to save Devaki from the imminent danger of death, he would promise to deliver his sons into the hands of Kamsa. Text 51. When a fire, for some unseen reason, leaps over one piece of wood and sets fire to the next, the reason is destiny. Similarly, when a living being accepts one kind of body and leaves aside another, there is no other reason than unseen destiny. Purport. When there is a fire in a village, the fire sometimes jumps over one house and burns another. Similarly, when there is a forest fire, the fire sometimes jumps over one tree and catches another. Why this happens, no one can say. One may set forth some imaginary reason why the nearest tree or house did not catch fire, whereas a tree or house in a distant place did, but actually the reason is destiny. This reason also applies to the transmigration of the soul, by which a prime minister in one life may become a dog in the next. The work of unseen destiny cannot be ascertained by practical experimental knowledge, and therefore one must be satisfied by reasoning that everything is done by supreme providence. Text 52. After thus considering the matter as far as his knowledge would allow, Vasudeva submitted his proposal to the sinful Kamsa with great respect. The big lesson in this, considering the matter as far as his knowledge would allow. We should always consider, as far as our knowledge will allow, what is best for us next spiritually. Text 53. Vasudeva's mind was full of anxiety because his wife was facing danger, but in order to please the cruel, shameless, and sinful Kamsa, he externally smiled and spoke to him as follows. Purport. Sometimes one must act duplicitously in a dangerous position, as Vasudeva did to save his wife. The material world is complicated, and to execute one's duties, one cannot avoid adopting such diplomacy. Vasudeva did everything possible to save his wife for the sake of begetting Krishna. This indicates that one may act duplicitously for the purpose of saving Krishna and his interests. According to the arrangement already foretold, Krishna was to appear through Vasudeva and Devaki to kill Kamsa. Vasudeva therefore had to do everything to save the situation. Although all the events were prearranged by Krishna, a devotee must try his best to serve the purpose of Krishna. Krishna himself is all-powerful, but it is not that a devotee should therefore sit idly and leave everything to him. I'll repeat that. This is too good. Krishna himself is all-powerful, but it is not that a devotee should therefore sit idly and leave everything to him. This instruction is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. Although Krishna was doing everything for Arjuna, Arjuna never sat down idly as a non-violent gentleman. Rather, he tried his best to fight the battle and be victorious. Text 54. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vasudeva said, "O best of the sober, you have nothing to fear from your sister Devaki because of what you have heard from the unseen omen. The cause of death will be her sons. Therefore, I promise that when she gives birth to the sons from whom your fear has arisen, I shall deliver them all unto your hands." Purport. Kamsa feared Devaki's existence because after her 8th pregnancy, she would give birth to a son who would kill him. Vasudeva, therefore, to assure his brother-in-law the utmost safety, promised to bring him all the sons. He would not wait for the 8th son, but from the very beginning would deliver to the hands of Kamsa all the sons to which Devaki would give birth. This was the most liberal proposition offered by Vasudeva to Kamsa. Text 55. Srila Shukadeva Goswami continued, Kamsa agreed to the logical arguments of Vasudeva, and having full faith in Vasudeva's words, he refrained from killing his sister. Vasudeva, being pleased with Kamsa, pacified him further and entered his own house. Purport. Although Kamsa was a sinful demon, he believed that Vasudeva would never deviate from his word. The character of a pure devotee like Vasudeva is such that even so great a demon as Kamsa firmly believed in his words and was satisfied. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvar gunais tatra samasate suraha. Bhagavatam 5:18-12. All good attributes are present in a devotee, so much so that even Kamsa believed in Vasudeva's words without a doubt. Text 56. Each year thereafter, in due course of time, Devaki, the mother of God, and all the demigods gave birth to a child. Thus she bore 8 sons, one after another, and a daughter named Subhadra. Purport. The spiritual master is sometimes glorified as Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. Bhagavatam 11:17-27. By the grace of the Guru, the spiritual master, one can understand the different kinds of devas. The word deva refers to God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original source of all the demigods, who are also called devas. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, the word deva refers to God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original source of all the demigods, who are also called devas. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, the Lord says, Aham adir hi devanam. I am the source of all the devas. The Supreme Lord Vishnu, the original person, expands in different forms. Tad aikshata bahusyam. Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.3. He alone has expanded into many. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadam, Anantarupam. Brahma-samhita 5.33. There are different grades of forms known as Swangsha and Vibhinangsha. The Swangsha expansions, or Vishnu Tattva, are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the Vibhinangsha are Jiva Tattva, who are part and parcel of the Lord. Mamaivangsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhutak Sanatana. If we accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship Him, all the parts and expansions of the Lord are automatically worshipped. Sarvarhanam Achyuteja, Bhagavatam 4:31-14. Krishna is known as Achyuta, Sinayor, Ubayor, Madhye, Pratam Stapayame Chuta. By worshipping Achyuta, Krishna, one automatically worships all the demigods. There is no need of separately worshipping either the Vishnu Tattva or Jiva Tattva. If one concentrates upon Krishna, one worships everyone. Therefore, because Mother Devaki gave birth to Krishna, she is described here as Sarva Devata. Text 57. Vasudeva was very much disturbed by fear of becoming a liar and breaking his promise. Thus, with great pain, he delivered his firstborn son, named Kirtiman, into the hands of Kamsa. Purport. In the Vedic system, as soon as a child is born, especially a male child, the father calls for learned brahmanas, and according to the description of the child's horoscope, the child is immediately given a name. This ceremony is called Namakarana. There are 10 different sanskaras, or reformatory methods, adopted in the system of Varnashram Dharma, and the name-giving ceremony is one of them. Although Vasudeva's first son was to be delivered into the hands of Kamsa, the Namakarana ceremony was performed, and thus the child was named Kirtiman. Such names are given immediately after birth. Text 58. What is painful for saintly persons who strictly adhere to the truth? How could there not be independence for pure devotees who know the Supreme Lord as the substance? What deeds are forbidden for persons of the lowest character? And what cannot be given up for the sake of Lord Krishna by those who have fully surrendered at his lotus feet? I think I'll say that one again. Do you mind? Anybody mind? It's okay? Okay. What is painful for saintly persons who would strictly adhere to the truth? How could there not be independence for pure devotees who know the Supreme Lord as the substance? What deeds are forbidden for persons of the lowest character? And what cannot be given up for the sake of Lord Krishna by those who have fully surrendered at his lotus feet? Purport. Since the 8th son of Devaki was to kill Kamsa, one might ask what the need was for Vasudeva to deliver the firstborn child. The answer is that Vasudeva had promised Kamsa that he would deliver all the children born of Devaki. Kamsa, being an asura, did not believe that the 8th child would kill him. He took it for granted that he might be killed by any of the children of Devaki. Vasudeva, therefore, to save Devaki, promised to give Kamsa every child, whether male or female. From another point of view, Vasudeva and Devaki were very pleased when they understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, would come as their 8th son. Vasudeva, a pure devotee of the Lord, was eager to see Krishna appear as his child from the 8th pregnancy of Devaki. Therefore, he wanted to deliver all the children quickly so that the 8th turn would come and Krishna would appear. He begot one child every year so that Krishna's turn to appear would come as soon as possible. Text 59. My dear King Parikshit, when Kamsa saw that Vasudeva was being situated in truthfulness, was completely equipoised in giving him the child, he was very happy. Therefore, with a smiling face, he spoke as follows. Purport. 59, chapter 1, text 59. Purport. The word samatvam is very significant in this verse. Samatvam refers to one who is always equipoised, unaffected by either happiness or distress. Vasudeva was so steadily equipoised that he did not seem in the least agitated when delivering his firstborn child into the hands of Kamsa to be killed. In the Bhagavad Gita 256 it is said, Dukeshu anumigna mana, sukeshu vikatas priha. In the material world, one should not be very eager to be happy, nor should one be very much disturbed by material distress. Lord Krishna advised Arjuna, Matra sparshas takontiya, shitoshna sukadukada, agama payano nityas, tangstatikshasa bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Bhagavad Gita 2:14. The self-realized soul is never disturbed by so-called happiness or distress or happiness. And this is especially true of an exalted devotee like Vasudeva, who showed this by his practical example. Vasudeva was not at all disturbed when delivering his first child to Kamsa to be killed. Text 60. O Vasudeva, you may take back your child and go home. I have no fear of your first child. It is the 8th child of you and Devaki I am concerned with, because that is the child by whom I am destined to be killed. Text 61. This is associations, something good's rubbing off on Kamsa from Vasudeva. This is our duty, to become completely truthful so it'll rub off on others. Translation. Vasudeva agreed and took his child back home, but because Kamsa had no character and no self-control, Vasudeva knew that he could not rely on Kamsa's word. 62 and 63. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, and including his associate cowherd men and their wives, were none but denizens of the heavenly planets. O Maharaj Parikshit, best of the descendants of Bharat, and so too were the descendants of the Vrishni dynasty, headed by Vasudeva and Devaki, and the other women of the dynasty of Yadu. The friends, relatives, and well-wishers of both Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, and even those who externally appeared to be followers of Kamsa, were all demigods. Purport. As previously discussed, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu informed Lord Brahma that Lord Krishna would personally descend to mitigate the suffering of the earth. The Lord ordered all the denizens of the heavenly planets to take birth in different families of the Yadu and Vrishni dynasties, and in Vrindavan. Now this verse informs us that all the family and friends of the Yadu dynasty, the Vrishni dynasty, Nanda Maharaj, and the Gopas descended from the heavenly planets to see the pastimes of the Lord. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:8, the Lord's pastimes consist of paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chadushkritam, saving the devotees and killing the demons. To demonstrate these activities, the Lord called for devotees from different parts of the universe. There are many devotees who are elevated to the higher planetary systems. Prapya punya kritam lokan, ushitva shashvati samaha, shuchinam srimatam gehe, yogabrashto bijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Bhagavad Gita 6:41. Some devotees, having failed to complete the process of devotional service, are promoted to the heavenly planets to which the pious are elevated, and after enjoying there, they may be directly promoted to the place where Lord Krishna's pastimes are going on. When Lord Krishna was to appear, the denizens of the heavenly planets were invited to see the pastimes of the Lord, and thus it is stated here that the members of the Yadu dynasties and the inhabitants of Vrindavan were demigods, or almost as good as demigods. Even those who externally helped the activities of Kamsa belonged to the higher planetary systems. The imprisonment and release of Vasudeva and the killing of various demons were all manifestations of the pastimes of the Lord, and because the devotees would be pleased to see these activities personally, they were all invited to take birth as friends and relatives of these families. As confirmed in the prayers of Kunti, 1:8-19 Bhagavatam, Nato nat yadaro yata. The Lord was to play the part of a demon killer and a friend, son and brother to his devotees, and thus these devotees were all summoned. Text 64. Once the great Saint Narada approached Kamsa and informed him of how the demoniac persons who were a great burden on the earth were going to be killed. Thus Kamsa was placed into great fear and doubt. Purport. It has already been discussed that Mother Earth implored Lord Brahma to give her relief from the distress created by the burdensome demons, and that Lord Brahma informed her that Lord Krishna himself was going to appear. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 4:8, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Whenever there is a burden created by the demons, and whenever the innocent devotees are distressed by demoniac rulers, the Lord appears in due course of time to kill the demons with the assistance of his real representatives, who are technically called demigods. In the Upanishads, it is stated that the demigods are different parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is the duty of the parts of the body to serve the whole, it is the duty of Krishna's devotees to serve Krishna as he wants. Krishna's business is to kill the demons, and therefore this should be a devotee's business also. Because the people of Kali Yuga are fallen, however, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of kindness for them, did not bring any weapon to kill them. Rather, by spreading Krishna consciousness, love of Krishna, he wanted to kill their nefarious demoniac activities. This is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Unless the demoniac activities on the surface of the world are diminished or vanquished, no one can be happy. The program for the conditioned soul is fully described in the Bhagavad Gita, and one has to simply follow these instructions to become happy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore prescribed Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nastiva, 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 Gatir Anyata. Let people chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. Then their demoniac tendencies will be killed, and they will become first-class devotees, happy in this life and in the next. Text 65 and 66. After the departure of the great Saint Narada, Kamsa thought that all the members of the Yadu dynasty were demigods, and that any of the children born from the womb of Devaki might be Vishnu. Fearing his death, Kamsa arrested Vasudeva and Devaki and chained them with iron shackles. Suspecting each of the children to be Vishnu, Kamsa killed them one after another because of the prophecy that Vishnu would kill him. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami in his notes on this verse has mentioned how Narada Muni gave Kamsa this information. This incident is described in the Harivangsha. Narada Muni went to see Kamsa by providence, and Kamsa received him very well. Narada therefore informed him that any one of the sons of Devaki might be Vishnu. Because Vishnu was to kill him, Kamsa should not spare any of Devaki's children. Narada Muni advised. Narada's intention was that Kamsa, by killing the children, would increase his sinful activities so that Krishna would soon appear to kill him. Upon receiving the instructions of Narada Muni, Kamsa killed all the children of Devaki one after another. Of course, Narada also knew that these children were destined to be killed by Kamsa to relieve themselves of a curse they got before in the beginning of the day of Brahma. The word Ajana Shankaya indicates that Lord Vishnu never takes birth, Ajana, and that he therefore appeared as Krishna, taking birth just like a human being, Manushim Tanamashritam. Kamsa attempted to kill all the babies born of Devaki and Vasudeva, although he knew that if Vishnu were born, he could not be killed. Actually, it came to pass that when Vishnu appeared as Krishna, Kamsa could not kill him. Rather, as foretold, it was he who killed Kamsa. One should know in truth how Krishna, who takes his birth transcendentally, acts to kill the demons, but is never killed. When one perfectly understands Krishna in this way, through the medium of Shastra, one becomes immortal. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetitatpataha jaktva deham punarjanma naitimam iti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. And with that, I'm going to leave you for just a minute, and we'll start our open mic, and I'll be back in less than 3 minutes. Maybe even a minute. Time me.
It starts at 6.
Oh, Krsna. That's what
I didn't know this.
What?
Every day.
The reading starts at 6.
Yeah.
Reading
Oh.
do you hear? Now it's getting dark.
If it starts at 6 tomorrow, you would come. It's okay.
I know, but I cannot go. Because you know, it's late sleeping, but then in my life.
What's going on? You guys are supposed to keep the show. You're supposed to keep the show rolling.
Fine.
Really? What?
1 minute and 21 seconds.
1 minute, 21 seconds? Not bad. Lad. Okay.
Gopal is ready to take your place if necessary.
I'm surprised you didn't jump up there and get right into it. Providential. Providential. Okay. Whoops. I mean, you haven't just been sitting here, right? You haven't been just sitting here, is it? Yeah. You have? Yeah. Oh my God. Hey, thanks, come on. I really appreciate it. Here, take this. Take this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. Okay. Open mic time. I'm not the only one's got one. Yes, Kalpataru, please. But you have to get your mic. You have to get your mic in your hand first.
Maybe it will come later, Maharaj. That I remember reading somewhere or hearing that when Narada Muni comes to see Kansa, he tells him how it depends how you count 10. 8. Which way is it? Do you know anybody?
Well, there's different commentaries on this, and there may be different details given in different Puranas, and Harivamsa especially has all kinds of details about this. It hasn't been there yet. Let's see.
Later.
Let's see. It may come later. But Narada is obviously very tricky. He's almost like a little, impish. He like sometimes just stirs things up.
I just wanted to ask if it seems like Vasudeva promised that he would deliver all the childs to Kamsa, and he was made true on his first child. And it seems like, I wonder if he would have delivered Krishna, but what happened is that Kamsa broke that agreement in a sense when he just started killing, It seems like, I don't know if what Vasudeva would have done if Kamsa would have honored, as it turned out.
Better not speculate on the mind of a demon. That's the whole point of the pastime. Don't speculate on the mind of a demon. They're not trustworthy. They can do anything at any time. They don't follow those kind of logical sequence of events. Yes, Bhakti Chris.
Thank you for the reading, Maharaj. I noticed and noted that in this chapter, it mentioned that in the material world, one should not be very eager to be happy or to have much easily be distressed by material distress. I think that was referring to the Bhagavad Gita. But then I also got a hint of what Lord Chaitanya had done for us in providing us the chanting and providing us that weapon of chanting. And it stated that by doing so, by using that weapon and basically the duty to kill the demonic activities by chanting as a weapon, will become first-class devotees happy in this life and the next. So that happiness, I feel, is kind of an exception to the previous one. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think that as it's stated in the text itself, it's natural for everyone to avoid death, to try to avoid death and try to avoid distress.
Uh-huh.
It's natural because the soul is by nature blissful eternally. So therefore, that's its nature. That's the nature. That's the living being's nature. In any species of life, they don't have other species of life don't have the sophistication to think about other lives and this and that and the other thing. But whenever they're put in danger, they just fly away if they're a bird, or they go into a hole, dig down in a hole if they're a worm, or fly away if they're a mosquito. If you try to catch one and fly, you have to be very expert. So, yeah, it's just it's natural. So no one should be condemned for, trying to protect themselves or trying to avoid distress and, avoid death and such as that. Prabhupada explained that's because we're actually a part of Krishna. Our body is dear to us because the soul is inside. The body is just a lump of chemicals. But because the soul is inside, the body is dear to us. And the soul is dear, we are dear to ourselves because the super soul is there also. And the soul is a part of super soul, Krishna.
Thank you.
Therefore, all activities in this material world which are logical and beneficial are all promoted by becoming fully Krishna conscious. And not only that, when you become fully Krishna conscious, then providence helps you as well. The material energy will help you as well. So in order to, an intelligent person therefore will take all trouble to become Krishna conscious. Not just for him, but for everyone's benefit. As we were, Vasudeva was so honest that when Kamsa saw just how honest he was, he let him take his child back, at least in the beginning. Can't trust him, but still, his influence was so powerful. The person who's always truthful is very powerful. And also, I thought that Vasudeva demonstrated the perfection of that verse in the Gita about how to have austerity of speech. Because he was truthful, but he was also said it just right, and not agitating and pleasant and in so many ways, Pure devotee is expert at everything. Nicely illustrated by this pastime, Vasudeva. How he talked Kamsa out of it. But then you can't say that Narada Muni is like less elevated than Vasudeva just because he, instigated the whole thing. Because he was just trying to precipitate Krishna's. He wanted to see Krishna as soon as possible, I mean, we shouldn't imitate that. We shouldn't go around and, instigate and tell people something bad's going to happen. So therefore, we shouldn't imitate. Because, people who actually are Trikalagya, Narada Muni's Trikalagya, he knows past, present, and future. So he knew why these children were destined, they were going to be killed anyway. So might as well get it out of the way so that Krishna can come sooner. Because you couldn't stop that. What is the old wives' tale? Not the wives' tale. The adage is, I can't remember. I'll remember it. Go ahead.
Well, I had that same point in mind that Chris just quoted from the purport. How Prabhupada said one should not be very eager to acquire happiness in the material world, nor should one be very absorbed in the distresses, that equanimity. And I was thinking of the verse Mamu Petya Punarjanma Dukkalayam Ashashvatam, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna says it's a place of misery, temporary place of misery, and how every single time I hear that stated, that one shouldn't be happy here, or one shouldn't try to find their happiness in the material world. One should expect that it's full of inebriety, I always feel kind of like a realization, like the light bulb goes off and for me, like, oh yeah, I've forgotten, and I needed to hear it again every time. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah, that's why Prabhupada says in his purports again and again that we should hear again and again the Gita. Don't think because we've heard it and understood it, we shouldn't go on hearing it. Because time's so powerful, it can make us forget. But time is so powerful, it can make anyone forget anything at any time, no matter how powerful you think you are, how good you think you are, or how expert you think you are. Yes, Dr. Winston.
I think that's a great point. And to that point, one thing I was thinking is if you see something beautiful, like a flower that makes you happy, in and of itself, that seems like it could be like a fruitive activity. But if you recognize that as Krishna's energy, does that then make you Krishna conscious and remove that as a fruitive activity?
Well, if you appreciate the maker of it, if you think, well, Krishna, you are so wonderful because you made this nice flower, and then if you pluck it and give it to him rather than your girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever, then everyone becomes happy and everyone becomes purified. Whereas if you just appreciate it and then take it for yourself,
right,
it won't have the same elevating effect.
Right. So by that, then one can avoid the danger of.
Yes. That's the essence of devotional service.
Right.
You can't actually understand Krishna except through devotional service.
Okay.
And that's devotional service. You see the beauty, you appreciate Krishna, you glorify him, and then you take that beautiful thing and then offer it to him, offer it back to him. And in that way we purify the world.
I see.
Spiritualize the world, including ourselves in our own mind and senses.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Also got a question from the other day.
Say that again?
So we've also got Hannah's question from the other day.
Yes, Hannah got 3 days ago. She's probably fuming.
Is this your stuff from today, though?
Yes, yours from yours.
Alright, this is Hannah. She says, Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Please accept
Is
my
this from today or from the other day?
today.
Today, okay.
She says, please accept my humble obeisances. How were Krishna's brother and sister that we worship as the Jagannath deity born into this mortal world?
Well, Subhadra was not the same as Yogamaya, who was born to Yashoda. Subhadra was born by another person at another time. I can't remember the detail. Can you remember the detail? It's a common question, and I should know it, but the history escapes me. I don't remember. But one thing is for sure: Subhadra is not. Even though Subhadra is considered to be the sister of Krishna, we have to think about this. Let's think about this. Go ahead. You have some insight. We have an insider here. His name is Pranahari.
Well, I looked into this at one point.
Oh, please.
And if one carefully looks at the texts of the Bhagavatam, you see different things. How when that daughter was born, the seventh child, the eighth, in the Yogamaya, who Kamsa grabs and then she floats up. There's other places where that's referred to as Subhadra. But then there's other places where Subhadra was young, like for instance when Arjuna, later in the Bhagavatam, Arjuna kidnaps Subhadra. She was young. She was very young, but she was Krishna. She's also referred to as the daughter from Devaki. I was thinking maybe another wife of Vasudeva or something like that, but actually in the text she's referred to as the daughter from Devaki. And so they were actual brother and sister directly, her and Krishna. But somehow or other, she was very, very young and unmarried, way later in Dwarka when Krishna had to. So that's all I know from the text, and
Yeah,
I've heard other things from other devotees.
Yes,
but
it's a fact. It's very difficult to understand this, and there are different versions. And it's not that any one of the versions is wrong. And that's one of the things about Krishna consciousness that one has to become very advanced to be able to be peaceful about and understand. Jiva Goswami describes that unless one actually accepts the Achintya Shakti, that Krishna is actually inconceivable and can do anything. He can, distort time and space and nature and contradict nature. He can do anything, I mean, Vishwanath has a very interesting thing to say about this. He says that, because Subhadra is considered to be the younger sister of Krishna, therefore Krishna appeared from Yashoda along with Subhadra. And that when Krishna, the Vasudeva expansion of Krishna who appeared to Devaki, was then carried to Yashoda, who was very tired from childbirth and she wasn't awake. The form of Vasudeva Krishna, who actually comes from the original form of Krishna, merged into that form. And then he took Subhadra. So, and then Subhadra then came out, went all these different places after Kamsa tried to smash her, and she went up to the sky and took a Durga form of Durga. And then from there she went in many places as deities in India and was worshipped as different deities. So these things are, it's not possible to explain them in terms of the natural material laws of nature. Can't understand it that way. There are explanations, but you have to go deeply into the Puranas, and then you have to research and see what fits and what doesn't fit, and I'm going through all of Gopi Purandana Prabhu's lectures. If he mentions it, I'll let you know. I can't remember the detail. I heard it a long time ago, but I can't remember the detail. But we do know that Krishna never sets foot outside of Vrindavan. Yes, please.
I'll just say it. I heard from this one devotee from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya about I asked him. He's very knowledgeable in scriptures, Vishnu Purana and Padma Purana, like that, Mahabharata. So I asked him this some months ago, and he said that after Subhadra took that Durga form, and that was it. And then she basically took birth again later on, when Vasudeva and Devaki had been released from the prison, and later on she took birth again through...
That's what I heard. I heard the same thing. I'm sure that that's correct. I just don't know the detail of from whom to whom, that's all. But because he's Krishna's sister, must have been from one of the wives of Vasudeva later on. That's the only explanation that I've heard, but I don't know which one. And Hare Krishna can be satisfied with that. Yes, Bhakti Doug.
Hannah has something else. She said, as you read that no one should be eager to be happy in this material world, and that no one should also be so distressed, I could unfortunately relate. I'm still here bobbing back and forth from one to the other. Mainly I'm pessimistic a lot, even in a scenario that should be pleasing because it's spiritually related. It's like I'm scared to get happy about it, so I shut it off. Tolerating when you're upset seems good, but tolerating when you're feeling happy seems counterproductive. Please enlighten me because I'm confused.
Well, you know, these terms are not meant to be taken like this. These are poetic, philosophical points that are being made. It doesn't mean that we should go around and try to be unhappy because you can't be happy. It's just, I mean, that's ridiculous. And the verse is that just as, you know, just as distress comes, you know, even when you're not looking for it, so will happiness. So the point is, we don't go around looking for it because it comes. Happiness and distress comes no matter what you do. So that's what it means try to become, that, you know, that we can't become happiness. Happiness in the material world is temporary. The happiness that comes from getting something or doing something that gives us some thrill or, you know, some fame or some, you know, whatever, affection from others, it's temporary. So because it's temporary, we don't become disturbed by it. So it's not that we don't become happy, you know. I'm sorry, I can't become happy when you give me this cake because that says that I can't be happy. I mean, then you become a madman. You become a complete idiot, you know. Devotees aren't like that. It's just that we realize when something happens, we shouldn't become too jubilant when something good happens, and we shouldn't become too depressed when something bad happens. These things are just the natural course of the modes of nature, you know, fluctuating. That's all it is.
Even materialistic people.
The sage is saying that even materialistic people.
I mean, like a lot of athletes and stuff. They know there's ups and downs, and you know they have a hot streak. They're in a zone. Everything's going right, and then they hit a difficult period, and
they just keep on shooting.
They keep on going. But they strive for being kind of not too attached to the result and do the right action, right? Like you're in the sports field.
Yeah, they have to. They have to. And it's like that with everything. It's not just sports. It's like that with everything.
Yeah.
If you become too disturbed at every little thing that people do, then you'll just be either miserable or, you know, giddy all the time, and, you know, you won't be able to, nobody will take you seriously. Now there was something that Hannah asked from a few days ago.
She said Prabhupada Priya had answered it for you.
Prabhupada Priya, bless Prabhupada's Priya heart. Yes.
Jai Shri has something.
Jai Shri, we should say all Shri, Jai Shri. Haribol, Jai
Haribol!
Shri. We're all missing you too much. Come back.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Quote, it is natural for a person facing untimely death to try his best to save himself. Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:148 purport. As a doctor, I see so many patients, and also devotees very often over-endeavor to postpone death, to the extent that they neglect the more important aspect of preparing themselves spiritually for the imminent death. The other extreme also exists. Devotees avoid all curative means for treatment of dreadful disease like cancer. How can we strike the balance and know we are doing the right things, not over or under endeavoring? Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, your servant, Jai Shri Devi Das.
That requires spiritual intelligence. It's different in each case, it's different with each person, it's different with each event. You can't make a mechanistic rule out of it. Maharaj Parikshit decided just to fast until death and hear the Bhagavatam for 7 days. And that's pastime of the Lord, you know, so the Bhagavatam could be given to the world, you know. I think, you know, Krishna does talk in the Gita about being balanced, or being about not being extreme, you know, yukta hari viharasya, yukta chetapis karmasu, yukta swapnambabodasya, yoga bhagavati dukkha. He says, don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, don't have too much fun, don't have too little, don't work too hard, don't work too much, don't work too little. So what that is is different for each person. If we try to imitate, you know, Raghunath Das Goswami and eat, you know, a couple of pats of butter every other day and not sleep at all, we'll just die. You know, and he didn't do those things because he was like, you know, biting his teeth, and, you know, he was so much in ecstasy, he didn't even notice that he wasn't sleeping. He would forget to sleep. He'd forget to eat. So, you know, it's not that that's these formulas that we try to make, you know, that you can't calculate things like that. Therefore, Rupa Goswami gives the formula. You know, there's one rule. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all the other rules are servants of that rule. They're not the masters. If you try to make the master some rule or regulation, you'll become like a smarta, you know. And, you know, you'll have to put it on this part of the plate, and you have to eat it in this order, or else you're exiled from the community. I mean, it's like it goes on. I mean, there's some real extremes in India. You'll see real characters like that. They won't sit with you. If you're in a certain stature, then you can sit here, but you can't sit there. It's all overly, you know, the rule and regulation has become the master, and therefore there's no, you know, juice whatsoever, you know. But if you take the rule and regulation in a way that we can always remember Krishna and never forget him, then we will automatically find that balance in each instance. It's described, the process of surrender begins with sankalpa vikalpa, you know, accepting what's favorable, rejecting what's unfavorable. So how do you know what's favorable and unfavorable? If it disturbs your faith, or it distracts you so you can't think of Krishna, you know, or so if that's the rule, that if we always want to think of Krishna 24/7 and make that the goal, then all the other things will automatically fall into place. Yes, Pranahari, go ahead, go for it.
I was going to look for it, but there was a purport here that ended in, it's text 64. Let people chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. It came right after Hare Nama, that verse was quoted.
Yes.
And then their demoniac tendencies will be killed. They'll become first-class devotees. So I just wanted to bring up something that I heard a little while ago, but actually one of the boys heard it from someone. I don't even know who they heard it from, but they said you should not chant the Maha Mantra in the bathroom. That's an offense. It's not an offense. And the pastime is Lord Chaitanya was holding his tongue, and I can't remember, it was one of the young boys, pure devotee of the Lord. He was, what was his name?
Gopal.
Huh?
Gopal.
No. Maybe. Anyway, it was one of the associates, but a child, and he was walking Lord Chaitanya to the latrine, and Lord Chaitanya was biting his tongue, and the boy said, "Why are you biting your tongue, my Lord?" He said, "Because I don't want to contaminate the holy name by chanting him." And he said, but you always say that you should chant at any time and circumstance. And Lord Chaitanya said, that's right. And then he just kept chanting Hare Krishna anyway. You cannot contaminate the holy name. In India, it gets so crazy, these rules, that sometimes, they won't open the curtains for a certain amount of time, and then they shut it. Because they think that the day is going to be contaminated by all the sinful people looking at them. No, they think like this.
I also heard one devotee one time say that we were taking prasadam together, and he was Indian bodied. He wasn't, he was coming around to devotional service, but he was saying that because I was chanting while I was taking prasad, saying Krishna, Krishna, and he said, you can't do that because we're eating. This is muchi. And I explained to him how no, God's pure, the holy name's pure. It's not.
Read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, buddy. And when Lord Chaitanya and his associates started getting ecstatic, all they would do was chant Hare Krishna. When they cleaned the Gundicha temple, they were all getting as much dirt and dust together to throw outside, and every time they needed something, they would say Krishna. They wouldn't even say anything but Krishna when they were doing the whole operation. So this is all just manufactured. It's perfect. These are perfect examples of what I'm talking about, If you make the goal to chant Hare Krishna all the time, and then you'll automatically know what to do. And that's where spiritual intelligence comes in. In the spiritual world, there are no rules and regulations like this, especially in Braj. Everybody knows exactly what to do. They don't need a super soul inside of them telling them what to do, or they know what to do instinctively. But if we don't have that intelligence, then we should follow the rule and regulation given by the proper spiritual masters, not the smarta brahmas that'll drive us crazy with all the rules and regulations. When you say your Gayatri mantra, you know how long it takes a smarta brahmana to actually do it? 45 minutes. They've got all kinds of mudras and mantras and this, and they cure everything. It takes 45 minutes by the time they say the Gayatri. Gopi Prabhupada once said, if a devotee was to do that, we'd call him underengaged. If it was taking 45 minutes to say the Gayatri mantra, we'll say, you're underengaged. Okay, exactly 7:30. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. I have an appointment at 7:30. Thank you very much. Summum Veda Bhakti Vrinda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the devotees out there in cyberspace for all their wonderful questions and everything. And we'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock, same place, same station. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Bol.